Hey teens, we're going to get you ready to read your next book. In order to do that, we're going to actually talk about one of the hardest things we're going to do all year. This is just a difficult concept, and it's going to build into some other kind of more challenging concepts as well. So let's go. Make sure you write down the underlined stuff. All right. Now, the first little bit in this today is talking about why we need stories. Why do stories exist? What do they serve? What do they do? Well, one thing they do is, stories serve to explain natural phenomena. So if you look back in our history, we have great floods, and obviously the world was created at some point. So we have stories to help explain those things. We have stories to answer such questions as to why are we born and why we die, because those are questions in life for us that we actually have no true, clear, 100% answer to. And so stories help give meaning to those kinds of questions. Stories also help us escape reality. We can go to a world where good guys win and bad guys lose, even though in reality, that's not really the way things always go. Sometimes the good guys win. And in fact, oftentimes they do. And this is going to be the most important one for us today, to help define the roles of good and evil. So you can identify them in the real world. If you understand what good and evil looks like in a story, then it helps us understand it when we actually get to real life, what they look like. There we go. If you need to pause this, make sure you do. The next place we're going to go is where stories live. There was this guy named Carl Jung. He was a psychologist who lived in the 20th century, and he believed that the stories live somewhere in what we call the collective unconscious. Basically, a storehouse of memories that we inherit from the rest of society. And when he talked about collective unconscious, he literally means that deep down underneath somewhere, we seem to almost be connected in a way, and we share these kind of like long, far off memories in our history of the way heroes and villains and good and evil sort of work. And we're sort of born with this idea already. Even really young kids can tell you who the good guy and a bad guy are in a movie. The collective unconscious contains archetypes. Archetypes are symbols and character patterns that have universal meaning. So it doesn't matter what culture you're from, what world you're from, what country you're from. When you see certain kinds of characters, they are going to act and behave the same exact way. Doesn't matter what culture you're in, doesn't matter where you are in the world. Archetypes are that universal meaning that we give to stories. So here are some archetypes we're going to be looking at in our particular story we're reading. The hero, the mentor, the sidekick, the villain, and the hero's journey. The hero is probably the most interesting one because it's so specific. The hero is fatherless, raised by foster parents, goes on a journey, returns to the kingdom to right wrongs, and that's where most of the similarities begin and end. Really specifically, though, there are a lot of classic ones that continue on with the rest of them, marrying a princess, becoming king, meeting a mysterious death. Not only do characters like Luke Skywalker and Batman and Spider-Man and Harry Potter meet pretty much all of these things, but so do classic heroes like Hercules and King Arthur also fit the same sort of pattern. It's super weird that this very specific pattern is continued so often in literature and in the world today, but that tends to be the way archetypes work. It doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, your archetype in your culture is the same as everybody else's. Next, we have the mentor character. The mentor or the counselor, the teacher or the counselor to the initiate, they are often the father or mother figure to the hero or heroine. Yoda is an example of this, so is his mentor Obi-Wan Kenobi in the first movie. There's also the sidekick or the friend character, and they tend to be always with the other character, and honestly, there tends to be a negative thing that happens whenever they are separated. That is definitely continued in the story we're going to read. And finally, there is the villain. The villain is the opposite to the hero. They work to stop the hero from completing their journey. And it's actually hard to even to imagine heroes without villains, especially if you think about characters such as prolific and ubiquitous as Batman. There's a big 10-cent word for you right there. And finally, we have the hero's journey. I don't have anything for you to specifically write down. We're going to talk more specifically about the hero's journey as time goes on. In fact, your project for this book we're about to read is about the hero's journey. So the hero's journey is more about this character pattern, not necessarily a character, but a pattern that occurs in certain stories, actually mostly all stories, where we're called to adventure, we're called to go out and do something great. And you can take a look as we go in the circle, in clockwise here. You get some sort of aid or some sort of message that you have to go on this journey. You cross a threshold. You find helpers and mentors. You face challenges and temptations where you then reach the abyss and you have this big revelation about who you are. Maybe you die, maybe you're reborn, you transform, you come back to make things right that were once wrong, and then you return home. And that's it. Isn't that crazy? We're going to talk about how much this journey is replicated in so many stories that you are familiar with. And with that, that's Lambo out. We'll see you guys later. I know it was a lot. It was a lot in a very short amount of time, but we made it in under 6 minutes, and I'm keeping it that way. We'll see you later, everybody, and have a good day.